This is a message for every donkey voter, every
Australian sex party. Oh, sex party. I'm voting sex party.
to all those who have figured out, even more impressively, obviously with zero research,
This guy's a fucking moron. No research. I used to watch the Trues.
that the Australian Labor Party and the Liberals are exactly the same.
It's just the blue team and the red team when it comes down to it.
It doesn't concern you at all that you have the same understanding of politics as that enchanted ashtray from Beauty and the Beast's castle that wound up as senator in Australia, Jackie Lambie.
No, for some reason she speaks to me.
This video is to celebrate that after spending the last 3 years proving with, actual sources and facts, over and over again, that it matters a great deal which of these two parties are in power. Your meme you sent as a retort to that sure woke me. So to congratulate just how smart and correct all you amateur bodybuilders who work at Coles are.
I don't need to do any research. I can squeeze the truth out with me bare hands.
Let's look at Liberals' identical plans for healthcare, purely to laugh at how
It's exactly the same as McCain's peas and Cole's peas. You think they're different, but if you take the label off, they're just two peas in a pod.
currently possessing one of the greatest healthcare systems in the world, probably no thanks to any of these clowns, am I right?
Hang on, let me just consult this meme. Quick learner, correct.
Right. Medicare must have just fallen out of the sky as the universe's most helpful comet.
Oh, insulin for my diabetes. Nice. Hang on, what's it say on that comment?
Yeah, but what have they done for me lately?
Labor introduced Medicare. Not that long ago either. The exact same decade most of the people watching this video were born in, because the Liberal Party, after holding power for almost 40 years straight, flat out refused any notion of bringing us up to the basic minimum standard of the rest of the developed world, perfectly happy to allow 5 million Australians, a third of the population at the time that couldn't afford medical insurance, to die.
Yeah, but as a human ashtray, I don't reckon I'll ever need Medicare, so, you vote in your own interests.
But because there's no difference between these party poopers, I'm sure if the Libs were re-elected for a 14th time, they would have done it. They just needed almost half a century to warm up.
That's why I went on so many power walks.
Particularly seeing as when Medicare finally was introduced, the Liberal Party promised to, quote, pull Medicare apart.
It's like Labor's just a clone and I don't know which one to kill.
What's the bet Matt's gonna Photoshop America's healthcare system onto my shirt?
But hey, I'm misrepresenting your argument, which because you obviously know more about bans than Australia's political situation, you seem to have confused the two and think,
Yeah, their old stuff used to be heaps good, but their new stuff's just heap shit, eh?
who'd have guessed that posers pretend to possess knowledge? I can't spot the difference either when Labor just fought tooth and nail over the Liberal Party's plan to cut $650 million from Medicare, meaning you now have to pay for CAT scans, MRI, X-rays and mammograms. You're into insipid, completely unfounded platitudes like Labor's the lesser of two evils? Well, here's another. Ever heard the phrase, prevention's better than cure?
No, surprisingly I haven't.
Well, a lot of those scans are used for, amongst other things, detecting cancer early on, which according to Professor Auer, president of the AMA, that's going to lead to a delay of the effective early diagnosis of cancer, leading to premature deaths, and compromise the effective treatment of diabetes and other chronic diseases. That's just $650 million. So imagine what happens next year when they cut a further billion out of Medicare. The equivalent of 20,000 nurses. That's going to cause hospital capacity to shrink, as doctors won't be able to get their patients into hospitals or keep them there to receive the critical care they require. I bet those people are going to think there's a difference between Labor and Liberal. Maybe you can offer them some solace when they're kicked out of their hospital beds before being properly treated for life-threatening injuries and diseases by sending them your clever little George Carlin monologue you obnoxiously post to explain why you don't vote.
It's funny because it's not true. He's not even talking about Australia.
Yeah, but it's like, who knows, the same all around the world, man. Like, I haven't looked into it, but I bet if I did, like, that'd be the case.
And if that's what happens when hospitals are defunded by $1 billion, imagine what happens when the Liberal Party cuts $54 billion. Well, according to the Ernst & Young report, that's going to lead to over 107,000 people a year left untreated. Well, over 1 million throughout the next decade that I think will beg to differ with your Tweedledum Tweedledee picture you ripped off of Twitter. Especially when you consider why. Because as Mr. Turnbull himself so eloquently pointed out, we as a nation can't afford to do everything we want, and so governments need to make priorities. And the Turnbull government has prioritised over a fully functioning healthcare system, allowing hospitals to crumble in order to fund massive corporate tax cuts to the most profitable and destructive companies on earth. Banks, the fossil fuel industry, that just so happen to be the Liberal Party's primary donors. And you'll never guess by how much dear old moderate Malcolm's returned the favour by. $54.5 billion. The exact same amount they're gutting from the hospital system, with a few extra $100 million sprinkled over the top just for good measure. Sounds like identical twins to me. Still think it's splitting hairs? What about the fact the Liberal Party's been working behind closed doors for the past 18 months, planning to privatise a massive chunk of Medicare, the $42 billion payment system because they can't afford to keep a universal healthcare system running, and cut an additional $48 billion in corporate tax on top of the $52 billion, of which 60% will go directly to foreign shareholders. Don't think they'll do it? They've already secretly introduced the extremely unpopular $15 co-payment by refusing to adequately fund bulk billing, instead giving a tax cut to millionaires and forcing doctors to put a sick tax of $14.40 on the nation's ill. Yeah, the Liberals are still planning to pull Medicare apart. They've just learned they have to do it in stealth and slower, and yet you think you've outsmarted these corporate-funded think tanks and Oxford-trained lawyers with your vote for nobody me. If you had a shred of humanity, a shred of common sense, you wouldn't be bragging about how you plan to leave your voting paper blank, or donkey vote, or touting this faux enlightenment of putting the Liberals last and Labor second last. You'd be putting the Liberals dead last, and then every independent and minor party that dare support these jackals. Because at the end of this extremely tight election, one of these major parties will form government, and if you so arrogantly clench onto your idiotic, completely unfounded platitude that Labor's just the lesser of two evils in spite of all of that, then sign me up.